Hello everyone, in this video I will be playing through the Elden Ring base game as Calliope Mori. Now to address some possible questions I think people might have about the run, this isn't really a challenge run, just something fun so anything really goes. Only real challenge is what I choose to. Naturally the look won't be one-to-one without mods, if they even exist in the first place. Since certain armors have elements that can't be mixed, such as two things being tops and having things that match the look, I'll try to get as closely as possible. And as a heads up to possible gameplay decisions, this is the second time I've played through the game since it came out. So a lot of what I do is going to be based off of memory, which is very bad, and what I think will work in terms of the stats for the weapon I'm choosing to work around. There's more than likely something I didn't think to address in the comments, so by all accounts feel free to ask me and I'll try my best to answer. After making a poor recreation of her face because I'm impatient and just want to jump into the game, I select Samurai as my starting class because at the time I believe that Dex was the stat I wanted to have the most of. I'm still not positive on that. I think I ended up being wrong. I make an honest attempt at the grafted sign before getting swiftly reminded at what's in store for me throughout this playthrough. I step through the gates into Limgrave and begin to plan my first steps. So the weapon I decide to use is a Grave Scythe, as out of all the scythes in the game, it's definitely the closest one to looking like a Grim Reaper scythe. So I make my way to the nearest graveyard that has the skeletons I need to farm and unleash my inner Sam Mori. Please don't leave. After getting sidetracked on my way there a few times, I finally managed to get to drop after about roughly 20 minutes of farming. Now that the scythe has been acquired, death can be brought to the lands between. In terms of a build, I don't really have anything in mind other than just sprinting from boss to boss and backtracking as needed for whatever I might need to break through. First boss on the list, Market the Fell, and it goes about as well as I expected. Even though I got the gameplay fundamentals down, it's very apparent I have to relearn the timing, and I do get to that point, but it also doesn't help that my main weapon throughout most of the games has usually been a longsword, so I also have to adjust for the fact that this weapon is a little bit slower. After a few attempts, it becomes pretty apparent that my damage leaves a lot to be desired. So in order to make up that deficit, I head to Dragon's Bar to stab Grail or Nico kneecaps for some quick levels. I did try to get the Golden Scarab Talisman first to squeak out a few more extra runes, but Scarlet Syphilis hurts, so I'll put a pin in that for now and try again later. After putting some points into HP and damage, Margaret falls in 2 more attempts. Godric the Grafted, a generally easy boss for the seasoned veterans of this game. Now while I'm the furthest thing from a seasoned veteran on this game, I still didn't really struggle with him all too much. I didn't first try him by any means, but there were things I had to remember such as attack timing and animations. But there's one element that worked completely against me during the entirety of the fight, as well as a bunch of others afterwards. Don't worry, the video isn't buffering, the game is just actually freezing on me during the boss fight. And this was happening periodically throughout the run, and the freeze times just happened whenever, and they varied in length. Sometimes it was a couple seconds, other times it felt like at least 30. I'm still not even completely certain what was causing it to happen. I originally thought it was because I was streaming and recording while playing the game, and my PC just couldn't handle all 3 at the same time. But even when I stopped streaming, it still kept happening, so more than likely it might have just been OBS along with side of the graphically intensive game like Elden Ring. My PC isn't bad by any means, but perhaps it was just more than it could handle. Despite my PC making delayed attacks delayed even harder, there were several attempts where Godric was the proverbial nut tap away from folding like laundry. Naturally, in impatience, I would try to greet out the one last hit, and it would end up backfiring, which happens a lot in this run, to where I kinda just ended up calling myself the king of choking during this entire ordeal. Anyway, a few more tries and multiple freezes later, Godric goes down. After putting more levels into the same trio of stats, I make another attempt at getting the Gold Scarab. Once again, Scarlet Syphilis shows me why it sucks, and I put a second pin in it. After arriving in Lunaria, I decide to backtrack a bit to get some extra stones to enhance the scythe a little bit. I make Agil empty out his wallet, and then enhance the scythe to +9. Quick beeline to grab the Glitstone key, attempt to fight the dragon, die, and proceed to storm the academy. Red Wolf of Ratigan was a boss I struggled with for reasons I cannot comprehend. My damage was more than fine. I guess it's just my impatience. Instead of waiting for the boss to come to me, I kept on going to it. I know it's not a race. Waiting and baiting is a tried and true method, but I'm not really a passive player to a lot of these bosses, to my own detriment. After a slight change of clothes and more tries are taken, the wolf finally goes down. Renala ended up being really easy. Despite a few instances of getting really unlucky after 4 attempts and a turtle talisman pickup in between, she goes down. With newfound determination and my extra stats, I set out to give it one more try for the gold scarab talisman. After a few attempts and obtaining the cure for the plague, I finally grab it. Before heading to Altus, I just briefly run around collecting some materials just in case. Arriving to the plateau proper, I make my way to Draconic's tree sentinel, who proceeds to introduce my face into the dirt. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come back to this. I decide enhancing my weapon to as high as it can currently go is probably the best way to go about this. So I collect a few smithing stones, get a bell bearing to get the stones I could use a little easier, and enhance my sights to plus 14. I give the tree sentinel another go and get 2-shot pretty consistently. While I know the solution is as simple as just throwing on a set of armor just to get through the boss, I do want to stay on theme to a degree. The other solution is just to LOL get good and time my dodges better, but knowing my skill level, I'm better off just getting the Dragon Crest Shield Talisman. For a bit of extra damage, I also grabbed the Winged Insignia and Twin Blade Talismans, just in case. Also had the Duelist Cape drop while I was running around. Figured it actually kinda works aesthetically for the time being. With all that collected, plus a few flasks upgrades, I go in for another round, and after a few more attempts and luck really being on my side, he finally goes down. Getting into the capital proper, I got lost on my way to Goldfree. If I'm gonna do more of these runs, I'm gonna have to really remember where to go on these maps. Finally, my built-in man GPS kicks in, and I finally go in the right direction. I blitz my way past the enemies, heading for the round table hold for the first set of armor that I think is aesthetically close to Callie's outfit, the Albrecht set. It's not the best, but the cape is kinda close if you squint really hard. Goldfree. Looking back at my footage, I'm actually kind of upset at how much I really didn't appreciate this boss at the time. I can definitely see all the mistakes I made, everything that I could have done better, especially after having fought his second iteration and performing significantly better against it. It's definitely a shame. I honestly am looking forward to fighting this boss more in future runs. After a few attempts and a brief side quest to enhance my weapon to plus 16, and a few tries later, he finally goes down. Approaching the Erdtree, I come face to face with Morgott, the Omen King. Honestly, he's a pretty cool boss fight. He has a lot of skills that I kinda wish were incantations, especially his sword rain. I remember struggling so badly against him the first time that I actually had to ask friends for some help. According to them though, it's just because I got there a little early. Amazingly, I managed to beat him faster than I thought I did, watching this back. I got really lucky during the Phase 2 transition where I was just able to melt him, so in a generous 7 tries, Callie becomes a Kingslayer. I did get lost again on my way to find the lift, but it did allow me to find the deathbed dress, which was an armor set I completely forgot about. Minus a few details on the outfit, it actually kinda works for her outfit, up until I get the armor set I'm looking to use. After about 20 minutes of aimless wandering and my refusal to use Google, I finally find the lift. Arriving to the mountaintop of giants, I head to the Zamor ruins to nab the bell bearing, grab a few more smithing stones, and enhance the scythe to plus 19 before taking on the fire giant. His health pool was a definite concern, but I figured with a low tier bleed and frost build it wouldn't be all bad. However, I kinda ended up cheesing him on the back of Torrent and beat him on the second try. Honestly, I didn't think Torrent would make the fight that easy. I'll definitely have to keep that in mind for future runs, unless I get that stuck on him. At the Forge of Giants, Melina asks to briefly touch my hand, and I don't see a reason to not trust her on it. After all, the pink ladies need to stick together. God damn it. Waking up in Far Missoula, I head for the nearest Grace and immediately teleport out. After all, I've got other things I want to do before completely setting the Erdtree on fire. Surely I won't struggle against Malekith that badly, right? Before proceeding any further, there's a specific armor I definitely want to get, spoiled only by the thumbnail, that I think is the best looking for the theme in mind. So in order to do that, I need to head to the Consecrated Snowgrounds. To get the medallion I need, I head to Castle Sol to get the first half, instead of going to get the easier one at the Labyrinth Village, cause I don't know. There, Commander Niall The commander proceeds to show me the business end of his prosthetic foot several times before I finally go on another side quest for stones, runes, and the other half of the medallion, finally. During my stone hunt, I take on Radahn, because I kind of forgot to take him on earlier, and fighting him as late as I am, he's not as hard as I remember. It's definitely partly due to the fact that he got nerfed to the ground a few times, and the extra levels definitely didn't help, so he goes down in about 3 attempts. A brief note I want to include while watching all this back is that it's kind of been an experience. I had nothing planned out, no routes, I'm running all over the place, and trying to make a coherent script based around all of this nonsense has been pretty tough, especially because I have no idea what I'm doing. Even here I'm getting lost trying to find my way to Volcano Manor. I've got a lot to figure out about how all this works in terms of video content. After that failed journey to the manor, I decided to take the commander on again, and once again, I completely eat shit. After multiple failed attempts, I swallow what little pride I have and decide to go get Golden Vow, which I don't even use during the fight, and a Purifying Crystal Tear for later, just because at that point I'm also stalling. I also finally set out to look for the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, which was definitely something I want to continuously get, since I'm using a bleed weapon. It's just, for one reason or another, I never went out to go get it earlier, and I couldn't tell you why. Though mostly it's because I couldn't figure out where the sewer was anyway. Which is strongly evident because I went to the wrong dungeon trying to find it and ended up facing Mohg the Omen. Which is a happy accident because the silver lining is I get to learn his moveset a little bit before actually fighting him later on in the run. Though I kinda end up wasting my time going through the rest of it, as all it did was lead to the 3 fingers and not the boss holding the talisman. Instead of getting lost for another 20 minutes, I just check Google and then head straight to where it is. After a roundabout trip of splunking later, I get the talisman, and finally, the build is a little better. You know what they say, third set of attempts is a charm, and at the end of it, the commander is finally beaten. Also kinda helped that I had a better set of armor on too. I head for the lift, blitz through the ruins, and skedaddle through the snowstorm in order to grab the whole reason I came here. The black knife set. Arguably, I should just use the deathbed dress as it was probably the closest looking to her first outfit anyway, but I really like the veil, and the damage reduction is really nice because I suck. While I'm here, I go through the town's puzzle and make my way to the deep roots, stand before Godwin's corpse, completely slaughter Fia's champions, and realize I still have to do Ranni's quest to fight Fortisax. Fuck. Me being ADHD brain, before doing Ranni's quest, I had to stop at Redmane's castle to get an armor piece real fast. And about roughly 10 to 15 minutes later, I get the Commoner's Headband. I mean, it's close enough to Callie's crown, right? The ADHD kicking in really hard, instead of going to do Ranni's quest, I head to Mohg's palace. Mostly because I looked into more stuff for the build and decided to try and head into the DLC in hopes of getting the two-handed talisman. Because considering I've been two-handing the entire run, the extra 15 damage would probably be pretty sweet. The only problem is, at the time, I had no idea that it would be a lot harder to get to than I initially thought it was going to. I take a brief stop at the round table to upgrade my scythe to plus 23 and then head up to face Mohg. This fight was probably the most brutal of the entire run, or at least I thought so at the time, but after rewatching it back over, it wasn't as bad as I remember. Sure, there was relearning his moveset and the blood flame that lingered on the floor, but there was also game freezing. But it wasn't as bad as I thought. I do know that there was one moment in one of the runs where it was pretty bad, but it must have just felt worse considering I was in the middle of the fight. Of course, the game would freeze at critical moments, drop my roll, make delayed moves even more delayed, and just making things arguably more hard difficult than it needed to be. I do noticeably improve each attempt, but there were definitely plenty of moments where I just couldn't squeak out the last bit of damage and would get punished pretty hard for just trying to end the fight or just getting unlucky for a poorly timed roll. I'll still show the attempt that I believe out of all the ones I watched back over was arguably the worst out of all of them, just so you can kind of get an idea at how bad this fight was in terms of the freezing, and pretty much just overall how every fight went when the game was freezing like this. and this game freeze was just painful.
Damn, he really about to rock my shit.
After multiple attempts, I finally pull out Golden Vow and hope to put out the little extra damage I need and turn into Super Callie. Fragilistic expialidocious, even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious. And it seems like that extra damage is exactly what I need, because after a few more tries, Moog finally goes down. So with Moog beaten, I touch the Withered Arm and head into the DLC in order to get the two-handed talisman, as again I thought it was going to be relatively easy to get. So after going to where I thought it was, double checking the map, noticing it was significantly further than I thought, including some bosses I probably wasn't going to beat, I just dipped back into the base game. I'm just going to have to beat it the way Miyazaki intended, without DLC stuff. After returning to the Lands Between, I just go and grab the last few smithing stones I need to plus 25 the scythe, leaving any damage I might need just from raw stats from the levels or from buffs and such. Figured I would test my damage out on the harder version of Estelle, since that was the dungeon I used to get the last few stones that I needed. And while a good benchmark, it felt like I was trying to swat a fly with it, because he was just too high to hit most of the time. I will admit I could probably position myself better and just continued to wail on his face, but still, with how long the weapon is, you think it would have been easier. But after a few tries, I do take him out. Damage is looking pretty good, honestly. Once again, I make my way to the Volcano Manor, and absolutely do not get lost trying to find it, for sure. Not at all. After arriving with no problems, none at all, I spoke with Tannis to do what Reapers do best. Reap. While unimportant to the run at large, I didn't do it the first time for roleplay reasons, so I just thought it'd be fun to do, and it did overall fit into what I was trying to do for this run. I grabbed the letters and take out Eastvan, Idle, Juno Hoslow, and almost missed out on doing Vargrim, Bangrim, and Wilhelm. Oh my god, Wilhelm. Was really fun to do, but kind of pointless unless you just want the armor sets or doing it for roleplay points, honestly. After sending the Tarnish to wherever they go after they die, I spoke with Tanith and was teleported to Rykard. So up to now, the only real strategy I had against any boss was just throwing myself at them and swinging at them until they eventually went down, adjusting along the way. Rykard was a little different, being a gimmick boss. The best method to fighting him is using the Serpent Spear, as he's got that giant pool of lava that ticks your HP away the more you stand in it. So I wasn't sure how to go about it, because I figured wailing on him with the scythe would probably just be a miserable experience, or I wouldn't get that far and probably die first. Well, I just wanted to get the Serpent Spear off rip just to get the fight done with, and maybe make a haha joke about how it was just a scythe that was straightened. I figured I'd just give it a shot first and see what happened with the scythe. And honestly, it went surprisingly well. Until Phase 2. I just couldn't hit him. I don't know why. I don't know if it was the fact that he had a little leg now. I don't know if it was his hitbox changed. I don't know if it was just me being bad or something else. But every time I would swing at him, I was just missing. Maybe it was poor timing. Maybe it was his attack pattern. Maybe it was something else. But it was... I couldn't do it. After that, I just grabbed the spear and just go for it. And fail miserably. Multiple times. Finally, a light bulb popped off. The scythe worked the first time. I'll just do that for Phase 1 and then swap to the spear for Phase 2. Phase 1 was a clean sweep. Phase 2, he got a little pesky, and about halfway through I just said fuck it and got up close with the spear. And arguably he really can't hit you up close, so after that I pretty much just beat him. It went well. With Rykard out of the way, I remember I still need to do Ronnie's quest in order to fight Fortisax. However, I also get sidetracked again along the way and farm a crown fit for a queen. It still works if you squint hard enough, I'm sure. Make my way up to Ronnie's Rise to get the quest started. Feel like I forgot to mention something. Funny thing happened after talking with Ronnie. I got softlocked out of Rise because Blythe didn't spawn for some reason. I guess just aimlessly running around must have broken something. Off to Nokron I go, jumping down a hole, jaunting through the city proper, getting a boss's POV of what it's like to fight me, take out a deer spirit deity, and grab the Finger Slayer blade. Return to Ronnie, give her the blade, make my way to the tower, get to her corpse, grab the half of the bug sigil I need to fight the bloody, potentially undead dragon, and finally, I'm able to fight Fortisax. Real shame Fortisax is the same as any other ancient dragon fight, just with Death Lightning. Really glad we get that as a spell, but either way, it is still kind of disappointing you didn't get any more than that. Managed to beat him with little difficulty, just 2 tries. With no other real reason to push it off, I returned to Farum Azula and square up with the Godskin duo, everyone's favorite boss fight. The first attempt ended with me getting a 2-piece and a biscuit. Am I too white for this joke? They aren't all bad once you manage to take one of them out, so that was the main goal, and after multiple attempts I did get close, but naturally choked it out towards the end of it. A few more attempts and I did manage to put them down for the count. Not as bad as I thought it would be, all things considered. Making my way downtown past every enemy I see, I get to Malekith, who, like every boss before him, sends me to meet God. I actually got pretty close on my 4th try or so. Didn't really choke, just pretty much got comboed really well. After more failed attempts, I decided to give myself a breather and relax a little bit by trying to take on Placidusax, and wow, the damage was pretty bad. Pretty sure I just tickled him. 3 attempts without really even getting past a quarter of his HP, I decided to jump back to Malekith again, and second verse the same as the first, he rocks my shit. After taking a day's break, I figured I'd make things worse and add a 3rd boss to give myself a little more variety and head for Melania. One of the bosses I should be able to beat if I keep swinging at them. Honestly, forgot how rough it is to make way through the Halig tree. Even getting to Loretta is a bit of a challenge if you haven't done it enough. Loretta gave me some difficulty as I was trying to get back into remembering how to fight her, and after a couple tries I get into the groove and she does go down. Melania, Blade of Mikola. Don't think she really needs an introduction because you've probably heard it thousands of times by now. The first time I fought her was with the Holy build, and you could pretty much imagine how that went, because if I recall correctly, she's got pretty decent resistance to holy damage. The only reason I even beat her was because I switched to a relatively crappy bleed build. I just maxed out the broadsword, slapped on a bleed stat with the seppuku skill, and went in with the mimic tier. And with that in mind, after a few tries, I managed to beat her. I didn't change any stats. Only reason I even switched to a bleed build was because after enough attempts I realized my dodging against her sucked, and all she was really doing was just healing off me, so I did that in order to counteract it. And while I'm technically using a bleed build this time, I still wanted to try and beat her on my own. No summoning, no cheap gimmicks to a massive extent, but it went about as well as any first time attempts would go until people mastered her moveset. For the most part I have a general grasp on her moveset. I just keep on getting clipped by the last hit of her little forward slash, and naturally waterfowl. I pretty much eat the entire time unless I anticipate it. In terms of her frontal slashes, no matter how much I try, I can't seem to avoid the last one. I don't know if it's my positioning, if I'm just avoiding it wrong, or something else I'm not thinking of. And in terms of waterfowl, it's just really tough to kind of stay ready for it when she drops into the HP range when you're in the middle of smacking her. After multiple attempts, I really only dropped her into her second phase once, and even then it didn't last too long. No matter how much I tried, I really wasn't seemingly making any progress. It was at this point in the run, I felt like I couldn't finish it. I wasn't sure how to deal with Malekith. I kept getting punished by a few of his moves. I barely did any damage to Placidusax, and Melania is Melania. At this point, I figured I'd go after the Remembrance boss I knew I could beat, he said in post. I forgot this was in the way. After fighting the harder variant, this was relatively easy. I got caught by a grab on the first attempt, but downed it in my second shot. Before I called this run quits, I'd give both Melania and Malekith a few more honest attempts. Melania didn't go so well, and Malekith went about the same. As a last-ditch effort, I looked up a fight on YouTube from the master himself, Angbal, on how to beat Malekith, or however you pronounce his name. And the video was parrying him with the Blasphemous Claw, as well as seeing a move that I was struggling to avoid, which, looking back, was very easy to avoid. I just wasn't getting it, I guess. I fight the recusant and pick up the claw, and heading into the fight, I wasn't expecting to hit the parry relatively easily, but surprisingly, I did manage to pull it off fairly easily, actually. After a few attempts and getting really lucky with 2 back-to-back parries, I finally beat Malekith, which allowed me to finally get into the end game for the final boss. When I made it to the Ashen Capital, I honestly at the time thought I had 3 bosses left, and didn't realize I was forgetting one of them. Not you. You. Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. I couldn't tell you how I forgot him. It might have been the frustration of the fight or the excitement of just beating Malekith and thinking I didn't have far to go, but I completely forgot. I honestly just thought it was going to be Gideon, Radagon, and the Elden Beast. Once I remembered, I did have a slight feeling of dread because I do remember struggling pretty heavily against them the first time. However, this run ended up being very different, and he, pretty much like I mentioned way earlier, became my favorite fight in the entire game. Like I said earlier, none of his attacks, save for a few grabs, felt cheap. They were relatively fair. All of his stomps, all of his dashes and stuff were only punishing my own mistakes. Maybe it's from watching a bunch of YouTubers fight him, maybe his AoEs are easier to read than I'm thinking, or he's on the easier side. Could be just overall growing as a player, could be just the skill check from earlier when I fought his golden form, but either way, he was fun to fight. Probably helped me learn a little bit more patience going slower, and dodging all the moves until I can punish them. Either way, I thoroughly enjoyed the fight with him. Every death was just a teaching moment, an adjustment to be made, and adapting to be had. Finally, after a few tries, he goes down. And out of with a bow of respect, Jesus, I move on. I ascend the steps leading to the air tree, touch the light, and move on to face my next adversary. I want to backpedal real quick to just show one moment that happened during one of my Godfrey attempts. If you listen closely, you can hear the exact moment my heart shatters. Radagon of the Golden Order. Really cool boss with a lackluster finish, unfortunately. Like other bosses, he definitely has some skills I wish we could use on our characters. Those lightning bolts and even the ground one would be really cool incantations for faith builds. While I did struggle against him, it never really felt impossible. It could be because I could see the finish line and was so close to finishing the game, or just the boss's design, but after throwing myself at him a few times, I did finally manage to win. Only problem is I forgot to unpause my OBS recording, so I don't have the finishing to show. I tried to use the NVIDIA built-in capture, but it started at the point when it showed his corpse in the cutscene, so unfortunately there's no way I can get it unless I do the game all over again. With that point being made, it kinda spoils how the Elden Beast fight went, and to be honest, Torrent makes that fight trivial. I remember my first attempt against the Elden Beast was the old-fashioned way, having to chase him down, dealing with him running away, all of his bullet hell attacks. Even then, I wouldn't have called the fight difficult exactly, just annoying more so than anything else, but either way, Torrent makes the fight he makes it cheap. I could have just gotten off and fought him the old-fashioned way, but I was curious how much easier Torrent made the fight, and after chasing him around the horse and avoiding all of his attacks, he falls on the first attempt. The fight finished, I approach Marika's corpse and make the only choice that there is to make, and the rune of death is applied, and death spreads throughout the land between. And with that, she has ascended. I did still have a dragon to slay, however, though I'm not certain what changed, because my damage wasn't much better, but I guess maybe my performance improved? Maybe I must have definitely learned something from my fight against Godfrey. After about 20 minutes or so, probably a lot more, of fighting tooth and nail, I finally attempted to employ the laser cheese against the wall, and Placidusax goes down. That just leaves one boss remaining. Unfortunately, she's where this run ends. I just can't seem to beat her. While I wanted to post a complete run with all remembrances, it just seems like I can't pull that off. But Honestly, I'm okay with that. Nothing about any of this video has been perfect by any means, from my gameplay to this excuse of a poor excuse of a script I wrote. Jesus, I can't even read it right still. To everything. It comes up short in the end. This video is a start to something more. It's a poor start by every means of the word, but it's still a start, and nothing says I can't come back and retry this run and more updated at a later date. For now, Millennia is gonna be the only thing that everyone's favorite Rapping Reaper can't seem to beat in this run. And that's the end of the run. If you made it this far, well, first, thank you for not only clicking on the video to give me a chance, but actually watching it to the end. I definitely appreciate it. I'm definitely gonna try and do more runs like this. I already have one in mind I'm gonna do. It was gonna be different, but in light of certain announcements that happened, I'm going to maybe try swapping it out. It's definitely not gonna be done before 2 weeks is up, but better start it than not, I guess. Um, gonna try keeping this short. Don't need this video to look longer than it already is. Um, I'm definitely gonna make another video going over a few more things. So if you're interested in what I want to have planned in the future and how I want to try building this channel, um, like and subscribe. Well, subscribe and I guess just hit the like to give me a hand. I don't know how this works. Outside of that, just thanks. Hope to see anyone who actually enjoyed this in the next one. Bye!